Hello there guys and welcome, it is Niran here, and today it is time for F1 2016 career mode here with Renault. It's been a little bit less time than it was last time. I'm going to try and make this a little bit more regular, but today we are in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpar, for round number 16 and hence episode number 16 of this series. Of course, driving for Renault, you can see in the background is the vehicle performance comparison and where we stand in terms of upgrades. We're hoping to get an upgrade done actually after practice, because you can see we've got 826 resource points stacked up. We're going to save those and try and get either a downforce upgrade or a chassis weight upgrade to see if we can take ourselves above Force India in the running order again, because we were above them before Belgium, but then they brought some upgrades to the table and leapfrogged us once again. Nevertheless, it is now time to jump straight into practice for this Malaysian Grand Prix weekend. It is a track that I quite like actually, because it's a track that's been on the calendar for a while. A lot of the tracks that I don't get on with are the ones that have been newly added to the calendar, but Malaysia's been here for such a long time relative to my lifetime, I suppose, that it's a track that I've played a lot on previous F1 games, you know, way back on the PlayStation days, and it's hence a track that I like quite a lot. So we're getting into practice, and of course track acclimatization first. Pretty cautious as always really at the start of one of these track acclimatization sessions, because, you know, it's just time to get used to the game again. Maybe I haven't played for a while, and it's also getting used to the track and just getting some running done on the harder compound now. Going through for the first lap, we did actually miss the final corner, but we did get the DRS zone afterwards. I managed to get 345, but I actually decided to end it there, which I wouldn't usually do. I'd try and get the 50 resource points for Malaysia, but I noticed during that lap there were some corners that I was hitting perfectly and it was still giving me green, so I just thought, well, it's clearly very unrealistic in terms of the speed that it's expected me to take into certain corners, so I decided to do another lap and just didn't get any more points, so we left it at that. We do get 30 resource points for track acclimatization, and you can see on the qualifying pace going into the final corner, we do lock up slightly, we are almost a second up on the time delta, and in fact we're now more than a second up, 1.1 seconds at least up on the target time going across the line, and we get the purple score straight away, which is another 50 resource points in the bank. And on top of the team objectives that we managed to get in that session, which was all 5 of the 5 set for us, that's 25 more, we're now on to 954 resource points, which means we can now spend them on an upgrade, and we're going to go for downforce because it offers the same amount of reward in terms of an upgrade for the car as the chassis weight one did, but it was just less points, so it seemed more point effective realistically. Nevertheless, we're now getting news from our PR agent that we've got a new rival, and it's actually Kimi Räikkönen, who I understand why, because he sat above us in the table, but Ferrari have the best car and we only have the 7th best car on the entire grid, so it's going to be a very difficult rivalry to win, but we'll see how we get on in our rivalry in our first session with the qualifying report. The overcast conditions in Malaysia seemed to suit Ferrari best, as Sebastian Vettel was fastest in Q1. Yusufu just squeezed into Q2 despite Felipe Nasr's antics following a collision, whilst Haas struggled. Both Gutierrez and Romain Grosjean went out of the first hurdle. Vettel was fastest again in Q2, this time by a whopping half a second over Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. The shock of the session, however, was Max Verstappen going out in P11 for Red Bull, whose sister team Toro Rosso also struggled, getting 12th and 16th only. In contrast, Renault did a stellar job to get both cars into the shootout. And in that shootout, Sebastian Vettel would complete his qualifying hat-trick, grabbing pole just ahead of Nico Rosberg and Kimi Räikkönen. Daniel Ricciardo was the best of the rest in 5th, whilst Yusufu took a solid 7th, and Alonso took 9th for McLaren. So it'll be Sebastian Vettel on pole from fellow countryman Nico Rosberg for the Malaysian Grand Prix, with a Ferrari and Mercedes on row 2, but this time Räikkönen and Hamilton. Daniel Ricciardo took 5th in front of Felipe Massa, Yusufu in a brilliant 7th for Renault, and then Valtteri Bottas for Williams, with Fernando Alonso in 9th, the second of the Renaults Magnussen in 10th, and then Verstappen and Kvyat to round out the top 12. So it is arguably the team's best qualifying of the entire season, coming here in round number 16 for the Malaysian Grand Prix. 7th and 10th for both of the Renaults, both of us making it into Q3. Kevin Magnussen doing a great job to put it on row 5 and in P10. The conditions are completely different here for the races that we had in qualifying. We've got damp conditions, intermediate style conditions, light rain has descended on Kuala Lumpar, a track and a nation generally, Malaysia, that welcomes rain on a a very regular basis, usually in heavier amounts than this, so we have been let off quite lightly, I do believe, for this Grand Prix, but there is still a lot of precipitation in the air and on the track. Nevertheless, it is time to get into the formation lap, starting from P7. We're sandwiched in between the two Williamses. We've got Fernando Alonso directly behind us in P9, and then of course it is our teammate Kevin Magnussen in P10. Sebastian Vettel taking pole. He'll be looking to win, and if he does, he has taken a massive stride towards the title. A championship at the moment which he's dominated, to be quite honest with you, with the failings of the Mercedes during different parts of the year. Nevertheless, the grid is now reforming. We're lining up in P7, going to our starting box and waiting for the rest of the grid to line up behind us. In the dizzying heights of P7, one of the best qualifying positions we've had personally, and obviously made even better by Magnussen, but now the lights are starting to illuminate here for the Malaysian Grand Prix. The 5 lights are now on, and they are now off for the Malaysian Grand Prix. It's not a very good start at all. Valtteri Bottas has already got the jump on us. We're still getting in the slipstream there. Better traction in the second phase of the start and going past Daniel Ricciardo. Now at the inside of our rival for this weekend, Kimi Raikkonen. Bottas is on the outside. We're going up the inside of both the Finnish drivers and now locking up into turn 1. Braking later than Felipe Massa and getting past him as well. We've gained a net 4 positions despite the poor start. Now trying to get around the outside of Lewis Hamilton. Can we get the traction off the corner out of turn 2? Yes, we can. Up into P3. What a start this is. Lewis Hamilton drops to P4, sliding there through the long right-hander. Nico Rosberg's actually taken the lead from his countryman Sebastian Vettel as well. So not a great start for the Ferrari driver, but second place is still more than enough to keep him well in the lead of the championship. But at the moment, we're looking very good as well, all over the back end of the prancing horse. That red, beautiful Ferrari looking slightly less red in these foggy, damp conditions. We've gone a little bit wide there through that right-hander and lost the back end. That'll lose us some time, and it's lost us a position as well as Lewis Hamilton goes through the Mercedes. Our line very much compromised, and now we've got Felipe Massa all over the back of us. Both of the Williams cars made great starts. We were boxed in on the outside, whereas we had a massive amount of space on the inside to just lunge up the inside of everyone. It's a bit of a shame actually for Massa and for Bottas because their launches were great. Nevertheless, now towards the end of lap 1, Rosberg's still leading, but he's got Vettel all over the back of him. Hamilton here is in 3rd, then it's us. Raikkonen in P5, but he's gone off at the final corner, and the man that we are battling with in terms of this rivalry has binned it at the final corner here on the first lap of the race. Rosberg sets the fastest lap of the race as well on the first lap. And as you can see, the safety car is out. We pile into the back of Lewis Hamilton, who brakes far too aggressively. Thankfully, somehow we've got absolutely no damage from that collision whatsoever. No idea how, because Lewis Hamilton just completely brake checking us. No idea what he was doing. But unfortunately, the AI just seeming to lack brain cells under the safety car. Thankfully, no damage for us. No damage as well for Kimi Raikkonen. He just completely outbraked himself, to be quite honest with you, going through the final corner, almost beaching it as well in the gravel, but I do believe he's managed to carry on. So why there was really any need for a safety car in the first place, I'm not entirely sure. But after 3 laps, the safety car is now coming in here on lap 4. It feels like normal F1. It feels like real-life F1 with safety cars staying out for this long. We'll have to see whether we get any more in these damp conditions at a tricky track like this. We're right up the back end here of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, literally touching that rear diffuser, and now we are green and underway for racing again, almost tapping the back end of Lewis Hamilton, maybe just giving the back end of that car a tiny little tap as we go through the final corner. We can get good traction out of that final corner. Yes, we can. The traction's looking great so far in this Renault. When we breeze past Lewis Hamilton with the rich fuel mixture, despite the deficit this Renault power unit has in comparison to that Mercedes, and we're back up into P3 after the mistake we made on lap 1 to allow Lewis Hamilton in that Mercedes back up and onto the podium places. Nico Rosberg is still leading this Grand Prix from his fellow countryman Sebastian Vettel in 2nd, but is now us in 3rd. Great traction as well coming out of turn 2. Can we get past Sebastian Vettel? No, not quite. Losing a bit of traction in terms of the rear end, and also Vettel just positioning his car very well to block any advances that we tried to make as we go through purple. Through the first sector, unsurprisingly, because this is only our 2nd racing lap. On to lap number 5. It's been a lap since the safety cars come in. As you can see, we've gone a little bit wide there through that very tricky penultimate corner, and once again, a mistake has allowed Lewis Hamilton to get up the inside of us. Now, though, we get better traction out of the corner, and again, in a theme that we've seen so far in this race, the traction helping us out. Obviously, we did go wide and lose the position to Hamilton. We've gained it now back as we go into the final corner. Sebastian Vettel and Nico Rosberg still battling for the lead of this Grand Prix. On to lap 7, and Nico Rosberg's actually lost the lead to Sebastian Vettel, and we are making yet another mistake in this Grand Prix. and we need to keep consistent, because that's the reason why we're dropping off the back of Vettel and Rosberg, losing the back end several times out of the final corner, and that might give Lewis Hamilton a sniff down in towards turn one. We go defensive very early on, make our intentions clear, but Lewis Hamilton disregards that completely and tries to go round the outside through turn one as we start lap number 8. We should just about hold on, despite Hamilton having the inside for turn number 2, and we just hold it around the outside as Daniel Ricciardo makes a move on Felipe Massa in the background, losing the back end a tiny bit there through turn 3, but just holding on. You can see onto lap 8 the tyre wear is starting to kick in. That front left now 50% worn. We're now in the realms of having serious tyre wear, and it's maybe starting to show as we go wide again. For the 4th time in this race we make a mistake, and it's allowed Lewis Hamilton through again, but he's poor on exit there through the penultimate corner, almost shoving him through that turn, and in the end we do manage to get the position back as Daniel Ricciardo can now attack Lewis Hamilton as well here on lap number 8. Sebastian Vettel's taken the lead and is now starting to gap Nico Rosberg, as you can see on the mini-map. Daniel Ricciardo now getting up the inside of Lewis Hamilton. Can he hold on to the position? It looks as if he might be able to. No, Hamilton gets the traction out of that final corner and gets back past the Australian. Our pit window is now open, but there's also other news as the safety car has been deployed again. Don't really know why. No one's out of the Grand Prix. There doesn't seem to have been any sort of incidents, but the safety car is back out. Maybe the conditions are too treacherous. Hopefully that isn't the case, otherwise this game is far too realistic for my liking. But we are going to use that opportunity to come in under the safety car and make a pit stop, and a lot of the people behind us and in front of us have decided to take that option as well. You can see Hamilton's in, Ricciardo's in, Massa is in as well. There was a Toro Rosso and a Force India carrying on, though. They will be at a serious disadvantage after these safety car pit stops have shaken out. Lovely camera angle of the Renault pit crew at work, and underway we go. Daniel Kvyat's into the pit lane as well. Felipe Nasr in the Sauber also coming in. A lot of teams deciding not to double stack, and I don't think Renault did either. I don't think Kevin Magnussen came in. As you can see, a truckload of cars coming in behind us. Also, I think Sebastian Vettel coming in on that lap, but Nico Rosberg deciding to stay out, which could well be a big mistake. On to lap 11, you can see a lot of cars in the pit lane, including Rosberg, and through we go up into P5. Rio Haryanto and Marcus Ericsson ahead of us still haven't pitted now, as the safety car's about to come in, though, on lap 12. It would appear we've picked up a little bit of damage as well on the front right. Whether that's a delayed damage from the Hamilton collision, I don't know, because I don't really know how we would have obtained that otherwise. Going up the inside, though, of Rio Haryanto, but it appears we've got an illegal overtake. I thought the safety car line was the first line coming into the final corner, but actually it's midway through the final corner, so we're going to have to allow the Indonesian driver back through. But Lewis Hamilton's using this as an opportunity to get back past us, using the slipstream of the Manor car and going up the inside. Bottas has followed him through as well, so this is a disaster, having gained a position on Rio Haryanto, who's out of sync anyway. We've now lost 2 positions to cars we're actually fighting out on track. Lewis Hamilton goes through, and a similarly powered car, the Mercedes-powered Williams, Valtteri Bottas goes through as well. But now coming through the second turn, now the third turn, we do just about get around the outside of Valtteri Bottas, and then with a little bit of wheel banging, get past the manner of Haryanto, who was clearly struggling for traction coming through turn 3. So we managed to rectify half of the damage that we did to ourselves by overtaking Rio Haryanto prematurely. On to lap 13, and the other car out of sync is Marcus Ericsson, the Sauber. He's decided not to pit for some reason as well, and we're going to breeze past him now down the back straight and down towards the final turn. Lewis Hamilton is in the distance. He's managed to dispatch the Swede before we did, but coming through the final corner we are ahead of Marcus Ericsson in the Sauber and back up into P4 as Sebastian Vettel's fastest lap is swiftly taken away from him by his teammate Kimi Räikkönen, who after his mistake earlier seems to be well on course for actually a decent result. I don't know what strategy he's doing. I don't know if he's even pitted yet or whether he's out of sync or not, but he's up in second position and doing a very good job. You can see though that our engineers are starting to say that there is a dry line developing, and you can see it on the track. There's certainly a lot less dampness and a lot less water in the middle of the track where the cars are racing. Valtteri Bottas though has fallen victim to this race, this Malaysian Grand Prix. I think it's a mechanical failure for him, and once again that Williams has let go underneath him, and unfortunately for Williams it's been a pretty shocking season. Massa only 12th in the championship, Bottas only 13th, and it doesn't look as if it's going to be getting much better for them. The tyre situation is an interesting one according to our engineer. I tend to agree with him, to be quite honest with you. At the moment it seems pretty dry, but it's been this way now for 4 laps and it doesn't seem to be improving. The track condition doesn't seem to be improving whatsoever, and we will hoping it was going to dry out so that we could put some dry tyres on. But as you can see, the tyre wear is pretty damn high. It's at 65% for the front left, so we're not going to be able to do more than one lap. And this track doesn't look as if it's one lap away from dry conditions. It seems to be staying pretty static in terms of the dampness out on the track as Daniel Ricciardo pits behind us, what I can only assume will be intermediate tyres. Into the pit lane have come Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel in front of us as well, so we're in serious danger now of being undercut. On to lap 19, the track conditions are still the same, the track really isn't drying out quick enough, and the front tyre, the front left is on 74% tyre wear, so we're going to have to come in this lap, otherwise we're going to get a puncture. Kimi Raikkonen has pitted out of the lead and we're going to follow him into the pit lane and abide, hopefully, by the pit lane speed limiter, but hopefully we won't lose out to Daniel Ricciardo, who pitted a lap before we did and was right behind us at the time. So we are in quite significant danger of being jumped after the pit stops have shaken out by the Australian in the Red Bull. There's a car coming in behind us. Sebastian Vettel's already gone through it. Sergio Perez in the Force India. You can see the Force India pit crew are out in the pit lane expectant of the Mexican driver. It's a decent pit stop from the Renault boys. 2 seconds. Kevin Magnussen will also come in as well. So it's a bit of a stack really from the Renault pit crew. Thankfully Magnussen doesn't have to wait for us. Looking though for Daniel Ricciardo on the mini-map, and here he comes down the pit lane. Can we jump him down into the first corner? Somehow Ricciardo hasn't been able to leapfrog us, but despite getting the undercut, and we do just about hold on by basically chucking our Renault up the inside of the Australian driver into turn 1. Somehow we haven't been leapfrogged, somehow we haven't been undercut as we lose the back end massively through turn 3 and almost going onto the grass and then again on the seemingly cold tyres. Later on to lap 20 and maybe the tyres still haven't got up to temperature because we still seem to be struggling. Ricciardo's all over the back of us and we've gone wide through the penultimate corner again, this time much more drastically than we did on the last lap, or the last time that we did it, and Ricciardo is now up into P4 and we are relegated down to position number 5. We are though right on the back of Ricciardo still and in his slipstream, obviously no DRS because we're in these intermediate conditions, so we're not assisted by the rear wing flap opening, but we do of course still get the slipstream. We can of course still use rich fuel mixture, and we can of course still get great traction out of the final corner, which we do. We're right in the wheel tracks now of Daniel Ricciardo in that Red Bull, attempting to take position 4 back off him, and up the inside we go down into turn 1. It's a textbook move, but Ricciardo is not giving this one up. He brakes late. Gonna have to show him to the edge of the track where it's a little bit more dirty and a little bit more wet, and through we go up into 4th place in this Grand Prix. On to lap number 21. Down into lean fuel mixture. That is not to conserve fuel because I realise we've got a ridiculous amount in the tank at the moment. That was just me over fueling at the start of the race by accident. That won't happen again when it's raining. I'm in lean fuel mixture coming out of corners so that I can get better traction out of slow speed corners. Nevertheless, moving to further down the order, and Nico Rosberg almost having an airplane crash with Nico Hulkenberg in front of him in the Force India down our home straight. The Force India looking up the inside of Felipe Nasr, I do believe, and suddenly out of nowhere we've got a Toro Rosso emerging up the inside of Nico Rosberg. This is for P14, so somehow the German has dropped well down the order. I think he ended up getting a stop-and-go penalty for ignoring yellow flags. So I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. Carlos Sainz though is trying to make a move on him, but there's been contact and Sainz spins off. Will he be collected? No, just about avoided by everyone behind, including Max Verstappen, who's also having a dog day afternoon in that Red Bull. This is what it looked like from Pascal Wehrlein, who just managed to avoid the spinning and stranded Toro Rosso in the middle of the track. That was almost a very dangerous incident for Carlos Sainz, who is now actually out of the race. Was he collected or is this a separate incident? This is Carlos Sainz now coming through the penultimate corner in that Toro Rosso, and the engine has given up on him, and unfortunately for Carlos Sainz, his bad day doesn't get much better. He is out of the Malaysian Grand Prix thanks to an engine failure, a mechanical failure for that Toro Rosso, powered of course by the Ferrari power unit. It is not a great day at the office for Carlos Sainz, or for Toro Rosso for that matter. It could be a better day though for their father team being Red Bull, as Daniel Ricciardo looks up the inside of us onto lap 22. A mistake from us going out onto the AstroTurf where of course there isn't too much grip. And thankfully we do manage to hold on to the position there going through that left-hander, as Ricciardo did try and sneak one, try and send his car up the inside of us, but thankfully we do hold on. And we are looking at a pretty decent result here, to be quite honest with you, up in P4 on lap number 25, but you can see the Renault tyre wear is starting to kick in again. 62% tyre wear on that dastardly front left again, just been causing us all sorts of jip all Grand Prix. It doesn't really look as if we're going to make it to the end. At this point, we're just absolutely praying that it gets drier. It hasn't been raining for 10 whole laps, and you can see DRS has now been enabled. It's not going to help us massively because we're not going to make it to the end, whatever the circumstance, but at least it might be drying out enough to put a set of dry tyres on. Massive amount of understeer going out to the AstroTurf again, and a carbon copy move. Daniel Ricciardo is trying to get up the inside, down through this slow left-hander. Can he get it stuck this time? We're going to hang it around the outside, and once again we get better traction than an AI car, and we do hold on. Our pace isn't that bad, to be quite honest with you. You can see on the minimap that there's not really anyone else around us. Sergio Perez is catching us slowly, but we need to try and avoid getting a puncture. That's the main issue here. The actual pace is not bad at all. The pace is fine. The pace is enough to hold on to P4 or at worst P5, but it's actually the issue of punctures on that front left, which is going to happen if we stay out. So regrettably, with 2 laps to go, we're having to come in. But if we're gonna have to pit more than everyone else, we might as well take a gamble. We might as well throw the dice, and we're going to put on a set of the soft tyres. The softest compound you can use here in terms of dry compounds at the Malaysian Grand Prix, and we're going to have to get out there and literally go at everyone else, give it full beans on these dry tyres and see if they've got more grip than the Inters. We come out onto the track, Nico Hülkenberg's on the outside of us, we're going to show him to the edge of the track and hold on in front of the Force India, and now it's all about getting these dry tyres up to temperature and seeing how they compare to the AI cars that are on the intermediate tyres. And the first target is Marcus Ericsson in that Sauber, who's having a very good afternoon actually. Did a different strategy by not pitting under the safety car, and it seems to work pretty well for him. At the moment though, it seems as if we're charging him down pretty well. That could just be because he's in a Sauber, but at the end of the day it seems like we've got a lot more pace, especially through that fast left-hander. Going a little bit wide there and out onto the damp stuff, we can't really get a move done through this section of the track, which is a bit of a shame actually, because we're significantly faster than Marcus Ericsson, but unfortunately going through this tight and twisty section, it's basically single file. We do however mount the curb and get a much better exit out of that right-hander, and that could allow us to get up the inside of Ericsson down into this left-hander now. He's on the intermediate tyres and they don't seem to be working too well for him, and that has allowed us to move up the inside and into P number 11. You can see on the minimap we've got quite a long way. It's 6.1 seconds up to Nico Rosberg, and that is where points lie. It's a tale of what could have been, to be quite honest with you still, because at the end of the day we could have been finishing P4, but we're not going to be finishing P4, we're going to be trying to get into the points, and that's just how it is. We are, though, closing down on Rosberg dramatically. Up at the front, though, there's a great battle going on. Talking about drama, Kimi Räikkönen on the final lap of the race, the final corner, is lunging up the inside of his teammate Sebastian Vettel, disregarding potential team orders completely. Vettel's trying to win the championship, but he's trying to win the race as well. He's got better traction out of the corner. Räikkönen ducks into the slipstream, but it is not enough for the Finn. He still seems pretty happy with P2, but it's Sebastian Vettel who wins the Grand Prix under ridiculously dramatic circumstances. And talking about drama for us, these soft tyres are right in their operating window. You can see we're charging down Rosberg and Fernando Alonso in the McLaren at a ridiculously dangerous rate of knots. If we'd had another lap, I think we would have caught the gaggle in front of them as well. For now, though, we've just got to try and focus on catching Rosberg in the Mercedes and catching the McLaren of Fernando Alonso. There's a Williams just up the road. We've gone wide through the penultimate corner again. The worst possible time to go wide. DRS, though, of course, is enabled, and we are going to have that from the back end of Rosberg, but he's also going to have the DRS on Fernando Alonso in the McLaren Honda. He's going to the inside. Alonso could potentially be left vulnerable here as we go up the inside into the final corner. We're up into P number 10. Can we get better traction than Rosberg out of the final corner towards the line? These dry tyres are working perfectly. A tiny little bit of wheel banging, but we will in fact take P number 9 from Nico Rosberg across the line. Again, it's not as good as it could have been. It could have been 5th position in that Grand Prix quite easily, or 4th position even in that Grand Prix quite easily, but the shocking nature when it comes of tyre consumption on this Renault Formula 1 car strikes once again, as it has done in multiple Grand Prix this season, which means we will lose out to Sergio Perez and Daniel Kvyat behind us in the championship. The gap between us and them is now very, very small. Sebastian Vettel, though, wins the race just by 0.07 of a second from his teammate Kimi Räikkönen. Brilliant racing between them. Lewis Hamilton is P3, and that further concludes really that Ferrari are in a great position to win this Constructors Championship. Daniel Ricciardo is gifted 4th after our tyre wear issues, with Sergio Perez taking a very very good 5th. Jenson Button in 6th, then it is Daniel Kvyat, Felipe Massa, us in P9, and Nico Rosberg to round out the top 10. Carlos Sainz and Valtteri Bottas are the retirees, and Kevin Magnussen had a pretty disappointing day after a good qualifying, only 17th position for him, though better than Max Verstappen, who was only P19. He maintains 4th in the championship, but only 1 point ahead of Ricciardo now. Meanwhile, at the summit of the championship, Sebastian Vettel is the mere 112 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg in 3rd. Kimi Raikkonen sits 6th even. He beat us, of course, obviously he's our rival now, and he beat us in that race. He's beating us as well in the championship. Then it is us in 7th, followed by Kvyat and Perez, and the rest of those guys, Carlos Sainz as well in that battle. Still just the 2 Saubers that haven't scored points so far this season. Ferrari, though, now 63 points clear of Mercedes in the Constructors, with Red Bull in a comfortable 3rd. In terms of the battle for 5th, it is Force India winning that battle at the moment from McLaren. Then it is us in P7, and Williams just 2 points back in P8. Great battle from 5th to 8th between Force India, McLaren, Renault and Williams. We'll still try and hope to get out on top of that one, but we need Kevin Magnussen to start pulling his weight in terms of getting points if we are to do so. Nevertheless, I hope you guys have enjoyed this rather long episode of F1 2016 Career Mode here from Malaysia, round number 16 of this Formula 1 World Championship. If you have enjoyed, then of course feel free to hit the likes button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel as well, approaching 2,000 subscribers on this channel, which is absolutely awesome to see. So if you could smash that maybe by the end of the year, that would be absolutely awesome. So if you are new, make sure to press that lovely red subscribe button under the video. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a great day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.
Wanna say yes, yes. Hope I see you next time. Said I want to be